That's Schneid.
Who?
Schneidman. Matt Schneidman from The Athletic. Ever heard of him?
I have.
Pretty
I've
good
heard
at his
of him,
job.
yeah. He's all right.
He's joining us now on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. We're inside Wisconsin Sports with Trevor and Josh, and now Matt Schneidman from The Athletic and the Tundra podcast. So, Schneid, you brought this up on Twitter yesterday about the last time the Packers and Bears played a game that had this much stake, if you will, was that game. Tell us why you believe that. I think he's muted, Josh.
Oh, it's not on our end.
Unmute thy button.
This is what happens every single Tuesday morning because we record our podcast on Monday evening, and I have my microphone setting to a different setting. Now I'm just on my laptop.
All good.
I think it's the biggest Packers-Bears game, or I should say the most at stake in a Packers-Bears game, because it's just a fact, I think. The Packers and Bears rivalry, for lack of a better term, has been completely one-sided since then. And, I mean, the Packers won that game too. I don't know the numbers beyond that. But since that day in December 2013, the Packers have won 19 of 22 games against the Bears. And under Matt LaFleur, they've won 11 of 12. And the one that the Bears won in January was when the Packers already had the number 7 seed secured. Jordan Love got hurt in that game. He hurt his elbow. Josh Jacobs got hurt / was being rested for the playoffs, and Christian Watson tore his ACL. And it still took a little bit of coaching malpractice on the Packers' part at the end of that game for the Bears to win on a game-winning field goal. So I think when you talk about from a fan perspective, I think it's good for the rivalry that both teams are this good right now. First place is on the line. There's been some head coach banter back and forth, whether serious or not, during the offseason. And this is the most juice there's been around a Packers-Bears matchup since probably the 2018 opener after Khalil Mack was traded, but most at stake certainly in probably 12 years.
Matt, do you think the Bears are legitimate?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can't discredit 9-3. I think legitimate is probably different from are they Super Bowl contenders? I don't know about that yet.
Agreed.
But I think they're a legitimate playoff contender and should be taken seriously. Absolutely. That run game, the offensive line is no joke, and they lead the league in takeaways by 4. They have 26 takeaways. That's really, really good. There are some flaws of their team that could get exposed, but you can say that for every team. You can poke holes in pretty much every team in the NFL right now, even the Patriots and the Broncos, who have the 2 best records in the league. So I don't think this is going to be who's a pretender type game on Sunday at Lambeau Field. I think it's just going to give one of these teams a real significant leg up in this NFC playoff race and the NFC North playoff race.
Outside of the Packers-Lions on Thursday, it kind of feels like if the game is close, the Packers either tie or lose. And if the game doesn't feel necessarily close, the Packers kind of edge that one out. Yet on the Bears side, if they get takeaways and they're in a game, late in the game, they seem to be able to win that game. If they don't get takeaways, they get absolutely curb stomped. What part of the Bears team do you think that the Packers team can easily expose so that it turns into one of those blowout situations?
Well, look, it's going to be strength on strength when you're talking about the Packers offense versus the Bears defense. And I kind of like the Packers offense in that scenario because the Bears defense ranks 25th in scoring defense, 25th in points allowed per game. But like I said, they lead the league in takeaways. Jordan Love's been one of the best in the NFL at taking care of the ball this year. He's only thrown 3 interceptions. And if you look at the top 10 quarterbacks, and I think, Jordan Love's tied for 7th in touchdown passes. But there are a bunch of guys who are tied for 7th with 19 touchdown passes. So let's say top 10 and ties in touchdown passes. Jordan Love has the 2nd fewest interceptions. I think Jalen Hurts has only thrown 2. Jordan Love's thrown 3 interceptions to 19 touchdowns. So this notion, and I know Orlovsky's touched on it a bunch this year, but this notion that Jordan Love's this reckless thrower of the football, I don't think is accurate. I think it takes skill to not throw interceptions and still have that accuracy on high-risk throws and still take those chances. And it's something Jordan Love has not perfected, but become really good at after some interception issues early on in his first 2 seasons starting. So I think if Jordan Love can take care of the ball, and I think he can, then I think the Packers automatically have a leg up because this Bears defense really lives off takeaways. And if they don't get them, then it's going to be hard for them to win this game.
Matt, the Bears offense and running game has been very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
The Packers defense with Micah Parsons has been very, very good. Although I feel like that narrative changed a lot after the Thanksgiving game when Wyatt went down and we found out he was out for the year. How does that impact this game against the Bears? And what do you think is the game plan for the Packers to try to make up the best they can as, Micah Parsons said, an irreplaceable player?
Yeah, and if you remember after the Cowboys game, when the Cowboys did whatever they wanted on offense from late in the second quarter on through overtime, Micah Parsons was asked after the game what changed. And he said Devontae Wyatt got hurt. So Devontae Wyatt's a huge piece. He may not be this household name around the NFL. He's the Packers' best interior defensive lineman. He's a really, really important piece to this defense. And on that play, he got injured. It was him collapsing the pocket enough to, make an opening for Micah Parsons to come in and sack Jared Goff for the second and a half time. It's going to be all hands on deck. It's going to be Parsons rushing from the inside to generate that interior rush. It's going to be Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse taking on bigger roles than they ever have as rookies. It's going to be Carl Brooks if he can get back from injury. Colby Wooden continuing to play well. Lucas Van Ness, I don't know if he'll be back. He's still dealing with the foot injury. It'll be him maybe rushing from the inside. It's a big loss. It's like, I wouldn't say it's the same caliber of loss as Tucker Kraft, because I think the Packers have more pieces in place to compensate for a Devontae Wyatt loss, but it's not far behind that. That's how big of a loss this is. I don't think this should be swept under the rug, but it's going to be massive, especially because the Bears are so good on the ground. They ranked second in the league in rushing yards per game with like over 152. They ran it all over the Eagles, and that was with the Eagles having Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. So Packers without Devontae Wyatt, it's going to be tough to stop the run. And they haven't really been good at stopping the run in the past month and a half anyway.
Matt Schneidman from The Athletic and the Tundra podcast joining us on Inside Wisconsin Sports. So you mentioned that the game has juice. Is there any juice in this whole Matt LaFleur, Ben Johnson thing, or is it just typical fodder between the Packers and the Bears?
It's probably more, I wouldn't even say it's between the Packers and the Bears. It's just an intriguing, fun storyline. Do I think that there's actual disdain between the coaches? No. But Ben Johnson in late January at his introductory press conference goes up there and says, I watched it back last night, so I'm paraphrasing the longer quote. It's basically, I wanted to stay in this division. This is the best division in football. I have a lot of respect for the players and coaches in this league. Kevin O'Connell and Dan Campbell are up for Coach of the Year, and I've really enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur twice a year. And so LaFleur, his public response to that was at the annual league meeting in April when he said, yeah, I saw it. I don't go way back with Ben. So if someone sees that and says, oh, it's just a friendly barb, they go way back or they've coached together, they're not. They're not friends. They don't go way back. They never coached together. So it was kind of maybe caught Matt LaFleur off guard, but he did say that he's not going to lose sleep over it. He knows Ben's just trying to, curry favor to his new fans. But then, when LaFleur's on McAfee before the second day of the draft in Green Bay, he says he's talking about the strength of the NFC North. And he says, the Bears did some good things this offseason with who they got, and they got a good coach, as he said himself, in Ben Johnson. So LaFleur kind of returned a shot. I asked LaFleur about it yesterday, since I have a story coming out tomorrow morning about just what's at stake here and kind of the juice behind the matchup. And he said he's not really going to think about it this week. And he doesn't care about it. But I would not put it past Matt LaFleur, if the Packers win on Sunday, to walk to the podium and say, well, I guess Ben's not beaten me twice this year. LaFleur is very calculated and politically correct in what he says at a podium, especially leading up to games. I think that kind of petty would be warranted if they get a win of the magnitude that Sunday's win would be.
Matt, we saw and heard from Matt LaFleur after the game on Thanksgiving how he said, you can't, if you're going to win here, you have to be aggressive. We had to come in, we had to be that aggressive team. They were, it panned out, it worked, but that was different than the Matt LaFleur that we'd seen a lot of the season. Do you think that was, he kind of tied that into going into Ford Field and playing against the Lions on Thanksgiving? Do you think that is going to be a kind of a new mindset that we're going to see more of from Matt? Or is this kind of back to what we've seen, really a coin flip on the play calling, the coaching style, and what comes out of the game from Matt LaFleur?
It's a cop-out answer, but I think it's the accurate one. I think it just depends on the opponent. We saw him against the Vikings go super conservative and run the ball a lot and milk the clock and rely on the defense to win the game. But that's because you could. That's because of how bad the Vikings are on offense. Against the Lions, you got to maybe steal a possession here or there. You got to be aggressive, not necessarily to make a statement against Dan Campbell, who has kind of revolutionized how we think about going forward on fourth down. Although I think the Packers did make a statement in doing so, but I don't think that was the reason behind their strategy. It's just to go into an environment like that against a team who's going to try and steal possessions against you, against a team that was moving the ball pretty much at will against your defense in the latter stages of that game. You had to kind of use that strategy. And also, it's not like, LaFleur going for it on the first 2 fourth downs was crazy. One was a 4th and 3 from the 22, and the other was a 4th and 1 from the 2. The first one, maybe you could, argue that one that they should have taken the field goal, but they were up 3, and you're going up against a really good offense in an away environment. So I don't think it was necessarily like, okay, this is a, mark in the season where we're going to change our strategy on offense. I just think it was that day, considering the opponent, the location, and maybe there was a little bit of this is kind of the style we need to play with to make a statement. Although I still don't think it was much of that. That's what called for that approach. Now, if the game is a shootout on Sunday at Lambeau Field and the Packers have a 4th and 3 from the 24-yard line with 3 minutes left, maybe they go for it because they don't want to give the Bears a chance to get the ball back. I mean, it's all situational, I think. It's easy to look at it and say, oh, Matt LaFleur is going to keep on being aggressive. This is going to be his identity. But the real answer is I think it's more game dependent.
A big one against the Bears. Then we go to Denver and then back against the Bears before we make our final appearance at home against the Ravens, then at Minnesota to close out the season. Have the Packers shown you the things that we as fans needed to see, especially in that game against the Lions, that would lead us to believe this is going to be a very celebratory final 5 games of the season? Or are we still in this mode of, we don't know which team is going to show up?
Yeah, I still think this is a very week-to-week league, and I don't want to say we don't know which team is going to show up, but the narrative around the Packers could be completely different after the next 2 weeks than it is right now. For example, after the Eagles game, it was they're 5-3-1 at this point. They might be a good team. They might not even be a playoff team. They're certainly not a Super Bowl contender. Now, a couple games later, it's okay. They just beat the Giants, sure, but then they handled the Vikings, went into Ford Field and beat the Lions. They look more like a Super Bowl contender. But if they lose to the Bears and Broncos or split, it's going to be, okay, they're a good team, not a great one. They'll probably make the playoffs. I mean, possibly. It's possible that narrative comes back out. But if they beat these 2 teams, it's okay, they're going to win the Super Bowl. So that's the beauty of what we do and reacting and covering this stuff each week, especially with a team of this relevance, is that the reactions are all over the spectrum every week, which means there's a lot of interest in the team we cover, which is all we can ask for as people in the media.
Matt, I feel like there's 2 competing butting heads kind of identities this week, and Trevor kind of alluded to it, but the Packers they play to their opponent. They keep it closer than they should at times. It seemed to be that way against the Lions as well on Thanksgiving, against a Bears team that it seems like when the games are kept close, they seem to win those games. And so these 2 butting head identities, if you had to put a prediction out there, and this is leading into Matt Schneidman score prediction, but how do you see kind of those constant identities throughout the season? Who wins that battle between keeping it close, playing to your competition, but winning, and keeping it close and winning those games that are close?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of illustrate what you're saying, the Bears obviously 9-3. They have a point differential of +6 only, and the Packers at 8-3-1 have a point differential of +68. The Lions at 7-5 have a point differential of +76. So the math isn't quite mathing on all that stuff. Like you said, the Bears are winning these close games. Now, the Vikings last year, for example, won a bunch of close games and won 14 games in the regular season, then lost in the first round of the playoffs. So does water find its level at the most important time of the year? Who knows? There is something to be said, and it's a good thing that you're winning close games as opposed to losing them. But I think this is a close game. The Packers win. I think this is a game that's close in the fourth quarter, and we see that closer Micah Parsons come out again. I went on the Tundra yesterday where I make my first score prediction of the week. I went 30-27 Packers in overtime, so I'm going to stick with that.
Oh my God, I'm
adding overtime.
7 headaches or heart attacks if this game goes to overtime.
Monday's gonna hurt. If they win in overtime, I will be hungover Monday morning. For the first time ever on this show.
Please. I mean, I'll be happy with the win, but Lord help us if that's an overtime win.
One last one before we let you ride, Schneid. The attention that Ben Johnson got for taking off his shirt, I thought was interesting. And apparently it was warranted because it made all of Chicago get free hot dogs from a local restaurant that said, if you take your shirt off, we'll give out free hot dogs. If Matt LaFleur was to take his shirt off in the Packers locker room and it cued free food, much like the George Webb burgers for the Brewers, you're here in Green Bay. What free food do you want if Matt LaFleur takes off his shirt?
Well, I'm not asking for Matt LaFleur to take off his shirt.
Neither am I.
I want that to be crystal clear. But hypothetically, if that were to happen, I would probably just say cheese curds. I love cheese curds, especially from, I don't know what the sponsors of this show are, but I love Culver's cheese curds.
Yeah, Culver's cheese curds are great. Yeah.
I love Culver's cheese curds.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Matt Schneidman from The Athletic and the Tundra. New episode of the podcast comes out today. You can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks, Matt.
Anything pressing in today's pod?
No, I wouldn't say so. Yeah, that's probably not a great advertisement for our show. But
perfect.
Solid Packers talk. Solid 45 minutes of Packers talk from a journalist and the guy who threw the key block in the last Packers-Bears game that mattered this much.
Yeah, it's Packers-Bears week. You can't miss this episode. Plain and simple. There, I'll help you out.
Full circle on the old block as well. It's great. All right, Schneid, don't be a stranger. We'll see you soon.
Thanks guys.
Matt.